Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's SAP community call. Welcome to our session today. Glad to see you all joining our call. I'm Lena from the SAP Community and Influencers team, and I'm moderating this call today with and for the SAP S/4HANA team. It's all about human capital management and travel management in SAP S/4HANA 2022. All about the what, the how, and the when. Glad to be joined by my colleagues from the SAP S/4HANA Solution Management team, Michael Deller and Ralf Wagner. Michael is our Senior Director in the Solution Management SAP S/4HANA, and Ralf Wagner is our Vice President, Solution Management HCM. This is really your chance to ask questions to our experts. So I would appreciate a lot of questions in the chat. We have time towards the end to address all your questions, and Michael and Ralf took their time out of their busy schedules to answer all of your questions. Therefore, we'll use the chat here in YouTube, for which you should be logged into YouTube to participate in the chat. Maria already let us know. Hello, everyone. So hi, Maria. Let's already use the chat. Let us know from where you're tuning in from. And I don't want to take too much time from the 60-minute live stream now, and I'll hand over to Michael.
Thank you very much, Lena, for the nice introduction, and thanks everybody for joining. Delighted to have you all in today's call. We, as Lena already said, we will give you in-depth information about what's going to happen with regards to human capital management and travel management, or travel and expense management, also known as FITV, with the next major SAP S/4HANA on-premise release, the release 2022, scheduled for October the 6th. We will give you information about what's going to happen on the functional side, as well as on the licensing side, on the commercial side. So what is going to change there? Due to the fact that we have quite a lot of information and a lot of slides for you, I will not go into details about what, for example, a compatibility pack is. We will just use these terms and assume that you know what they mean. If not, I would recommend that you take a quick look at the recording of the session that I did in February together with my colleague Mario Franz about the project system and what ECC customers going to S4 need to know about it. There I had a little more time to explain the backgrounds of these, let's say, commercial details. I do think that we will get a lot of questions. We will, of course, try to answer them after the presentation. In order to have at least one consistent run through, Ralf and I will just kind of present in one go, and then we'll take a look at what is there in the chat, try to structure it a little bit, but we would definitely appreciate to see your questions also on the S/4HANA community pages if you're thinking of them at a later point in time, and we will, of course, answer them. Okay, I think that was all I wanted to say at the beginning. With that, I'm handing over the microphone to my colleague Ralf for the HCM part.
Yes, thanks a lot, Michael. So I want to give you an overview about human capital management in SAP S/4HANA, what we are shipping in the 22 release, also how you can migrate, and then also talking a little bit about the commercials. Sorry. So first of all, I want to mention our overall strategy in the area of, we call it now human experience management. So we are focusing on our cloud offering, which is SuccessFactors, where the majority and the more future-oriented investments are taking place to support customers in their digital HR transformation, but we still are investing in our on-premise code line with selective enhancements, also the localization, so that you get the legal changes and the packages during the end of the year. So only as a reminder, so you know, Business Suite is maintained till 27. in standard support or maintenance with extended maintenance till 2030. As mentioned by Michael, compact available till end of 25. Sorry for that. So that was all. So a question from lots of customers. So what can we do in S/4HANA once the compatibility pack expires? And therefore, the board decided 4 years ago to ship this solution with the 22 release. So the solution itself is based on the ERP HCM system. We have taken the EHP8 code line in our development systems as a basis, as a starting point. And unlike in the finance area, where we redid the whole data model, we stay with the current architecture, and the functionality means all the info types you know from the HCM system, info type 1, 2, 7, 8, 15, 2001, and so on. They are all available. Also, business functionality is there. So no major re-architecture or major additional functionality. So also the jobs like an RP time for time calculation, the RP calc for calculating the payroll, that's all there. It's available in Q4, as mentioned by Michael, and follows the S/4HANA maintenance strategy, so until 2040 as of now. Also, if you want to transition from your current ERP system into this S4 solution, we call it, you can do it in so-called embedded mode, where you run HCM together with the S/4HANA system, or separated and link it via ALE. So same deployment options are available also in S4. Customers, they for sure will to run a HANA database underneath, so supporting the solution. And for the migration, I will touch this a little later, we have some tools and also some specific HCM content support customers in the migration from EC to the ECC system to an S/4HANA system. Also, the license conversion is something we are working on at the moment. So can you give some ideas how it looks like? But it will be available on the price list in Q4 once the release is then available. So from a solution scope, everything is included. You are running in your current HCM environment, so personal administration, org management, benefits, and so on. For sure, time management and payroll. Also, the learning solution, e-recruiting, and talent management. You see, there's an asterisk. We have in for the manager and employee self-services, MSS and ESS, we have some Java-based scenarios. They are not running anymore, so you should use the WebDimpro for ABAP or the Fiori apps for those scenarios. And in the learning solution, we are replacing some of the Java components with an ABAP equivalent. I want to touch two areas. So one is, as we are shipping S/4HANA release in October, some of the innovations which are available in the Roadmap Explorer, and then also some of the simplifications. So first, talking about the roadmap and the innovations. So there is this SAP Roadmap Explorer, not only for HCM, for sure, it's for all SAP solutions. And you can browse and look into all the details, what's coming in the Q4 release. I have prepared some slides with some screenshots and mockups. So overall, we are focusing on the user experience. So we are making sure that the existing Fiori apps we have available for leave management, for timesheets, for payslips, for personal info, for claiming benefits, and so on, that those Fiori apps are also running in the S/4HANA environment, also upgrading or updating the Fiori apps to the new versions of the Fiori technology with the Fiori 3 space concept, providing also a new Fiori role for the HR professionals, so that they have, because they have the need to run processes using some Fiori apps and maybe then also a classic SAP GUI. And so therefore we are making sure that with the rendering, with the belief theme, that both are looking similar. So the Fiori app and the SAP GUI, that they have a similar look and feel, so that the end customers can experience the same look and feel across the entire solution set. Only some examples for functional enhancements. So one is in the area of org management. So the PPOME, where you're all setting up your org structure and maintaining all the org structures. There we have things like you can now save variants and things like this. There is also better handling of cost distribution if you have org units or positions which are funded by multiple cost centers, for example. So that's all possible now with the release coming then in Q4. The same in the area of personal administration, where we said, okay, if HR business partners, they are dealing with new hires, with leavers and so on. And what always is a problem that you have to delimit the position at the right time and so on. So that's now also better supported by the offering, that once you have a vacancy, that the position is delimited. Once you have a new hire, that this is also then there. So those are the examples of the enhancements we are making within existing functionality. For the payroll administrators, there's always this question how to deal with wage type. So we have created a wage type information report so that the payroll administrators, they can access this in a central place, see what wage types are available, what information is stored for a certain wage type, and then maintain data accordingly if there are changes needed, for example. So is this taxable, non-taxable, or things like this? So that's all doable with this wage type information report. Data protection and privacy. So it's was always possible to block personal numbers or personal records, but there is more and more the need. The workforce is very fluid. People are leaving, maybe they are getting rehired, so that you can also unblock the personal records again. And there are authorization checks so that only the right people can do this, and it's also then auditable. Also important, we have integration to information lifecycle management so that you can then archive also the personal records, and that those blocking and unblock functionalities also in sync with information lifecycle management. So those are a few examples, not wanna go too deep into this. So you can look them up in this roadmap explorers for innovations we are shipping. On the other side, we have the so-called simplification items, which means that some of the functionality will be not longer available in H4S4. So one is this principle of one, which means we have one component which is covering a scenario. And here, for example, we have the old recruiting solution and we have e-recruiting. So e-recruiting will be available in the solution coming in October, but not the old recruiting solution. Same is with compensation management, for example. So we have a newer version, which is called enterprise compensation management. So that will be available. So some of the components, if you use them, you have to see how to deal with them. But also some technology. So we want to replace Adobe Forms with own technology. So there's no need to run Adobe for the HCM area in the future, and others. So there is this node where we, and I will not jump into the node directly, where we have documented all this. I think it might pop up in German. So let me switch to English here. So here is how you go from ERP to S/4HANA and the different scenarios. And this is how this looks like. So there are components which are available in the comp scope at the moment. There's an alternative, and you can then go to either this component, for example, or SuccessFactors as the successor. And another one, so a few, you see a very few, there are no alternatives, I think 4 or 5 line items, but for most of them, you see here manager desktop, landing pages, and so on, Fiori Launchpad. So there's always a successor in place. The same for some reports. And sometimes you see also that there are further nodes where you see more information how to migrate from this to a newer version. So that's what you can do as of now and prepare a potential migration to the 22 release also in the HCM area. That will be reflected in the readiness check, but once the S/4HANA release is available in October, then you see also those components, they are popping up if you're using them in the SAP S/4HANA readiness check. But as of now, not, and therefore we created the note that you have those details already upfront available. Talking about the migration, so you can run it, as mentioned, in a multiple instance environment. So you have separated the HCM from ERP, or you run it in a single instance. So HCM is part of your ERP landscape, or you are already in S4 in a 18, 19, 20, whatever release, and you're using HCM in the compatibility pack. I think roughly 1,200 customers are using this scenario here and running HCM compatibility pack in S/4HANA. So either way, you can run it also separated after the conversion, or you can run it embedded. As the solution is available in October, that's the, let's say, the starting point for the transition window. If you are in an ERP system, then you can go till 27 or use the time till 2030. For the customers who are using HCM in the compatibility pack in S/4HANA, the transition window is till end of 25 because of the end of the use rights in S4. How does this work for an S/4HANA customer? You are on an older release, you upgrade, you still have first the compatibility pack available and nothing changes. And then you have to activate this H4S4 functionality via the business function. And then you can use it, configure it. So we will ship also 2 new Fiori apps, a document app and a search app. And so you can configure them, use them, or this wage type information report. Those are available then once you are also technically in the H4S4 functionality. In terms of the migration options and the tools we are providing, first of all, there's this conversion guide, and the conversion guide describes the different things. But as you are already here somewhere, it's more on the upgrade, and the upgrade is then especially for our SAP Human Capital Management for SAP S/4HANA. Here, the readiness check, and upfront, as mentioned, this note where you have the simplification item. So those are the 2 things you should do before moving from a compact version of S4 to the HCM for S/4HANA in October. Look into the note now, or run the readiness check in October once the release is available. And then you will see those items, or if you are using some of the components which are part of the simplification catalog, then they will pop up and show you what you can do. In terms of commercials, so first of all, I think that's all you know. You have already done the product or the contract conversion. What we have done on the HCM side, I can jump to this. So we have taken the opportunity over the last 2 years and harmonized all the pricing structures across the different offerings. So whether you are in Compact or you want to go to this H4S4 solution, you want to go to RISE and use the private cloud, or you want to go to SuccessFactors with the our public cloud offering, it's always the same licensing model. So you have those scenarios called core HR, time tracking, payroll, full talent here, recruiting and learning here, no talent solutions in private cloud, as our default is then SuccessFactors for the public cloud offering, but it's always the same scenarios, especially for core HR, and it's always the same approach. You buy the engine and all the use rights are included. That's how we do the pricing, which means that we assign solution capabilities to the different material codes which will be created in October. First of all, employees, so personal administration, PA, then OM, benefits management, and then some of the talent components except recruiting and learning solutions. So they are part also of the core human capital management for SAP S4HANA. And also what's included is absence management, meaning negative time management. So if you are only recording absences, vacation, leave, and so on, then you are good to go with the core human capital management. If you are using the so-called positive time management, which means you are doing time calculation to calculate overtime, to do clock in, clock out, to calculate shift premiums, floating time, time off in lieu, and things like this, that means you will also need the time tracking solution. Payroll for sure is running all the payroll, including all the country versions. So all the 58 country versions, there's also no change at all. They are available in S4HANA as well, including the pension funds, the different we have for the different countries. There's a very German specific for public sector that's included as well. And for e-recruiting and learning, for sure, recruiting and training management. So what I can, so those are the 5 material codes which will be created and available in October once the S4HANA release is available. I cannot provide the prices as of now, and the material codes, they are then available in October. The only thing which is important, it's the employee metric for all the 5 scenarios. And as mentioned, you license time tracking, for example. You don't have to think about the ESS user, ESS core, or even a professional user. So you don't need any user type for those engines. They are all included. The same for core human capital management, the same for payroll processing. You don't need any professional users, whatever user in the payroll department, for example. So that's all covered with the engine itself. So that's how we want to do the pricing. So that's very simple, and as mentioned, harmonized with all the other offerings, that we have the same pricing available for on-premise, for private cloud and public cloud, always the same metric, always the same solution set. So that's very similar. And that makes it also easier, because we see now more and more a pattern that customers are using. We call it a core hybrid scenario. So they are using some SuccessFactors solution, especially for more the employee-facing scenarios, so banking change, address change, also that people are relocated from one department into another. So that's done there, but they are still, customers still are using time and payroll in an on-premise or private cloud environment. And to make this transition, not only from a technical with integration solutions we are shipping, but also from a commercial model, that we have the same philosophy and the same methodology. So that makes also the transition smooth from a licensing point of view. So that's all about HCM as of now. And with that, I will hand over to Michael.
Ralf, thank you very much for this presentation of what's going to happen in human capital management at really German Autobahn speed, lots of details, and I wouldn't be surprised to see many, many questions in the chat that we can have a look at afterwards. Our clear goal, and I think that has been very transparent throughout Ralf's presentation, making sure that customers can, without disruption, continue to use human capital management functionality in on-premise. And second thing, simplification, as Ralf has pointed out. We are not just sticking the functionalities, the HCM core functionalities to the existing use types in S/4HANA, but we are really aligning in this step the commercial model to what we have in SuccessFactors. And I think the example that Ralf has mentioned, think of a cooperation scenario, a hybrid scenario with SuccessFactors and SAP S/4HANA on-premise, for example. You really don't want to have different metrics on each end within one end-to-end process. You really want to have this as simple as possible, and that's what we are achieving here. With that, let's have a look at the second component, travel and expense, also known as FITV. What's happening there? Far fewer slides, I'm afraid. So as you know, the same principle that Ralf has outlined in the very beginning applies to travel and expense. This is also brought to S/4HANA on-premise to the perpetual scope as an intermediate solution for on-premise customers who are taking longer to move to Concur. Therefore, we are also really only making this available to on-premise customers, meaning while HCM, the functionality, has always been available in the private cloud edition, travel and expense is not available in PCE, and we will not make it available in S/4HANA Cloud, basically in none of the editions. Right. The, let's say, intermediate character is even stronger in the travel and expense case. That's something that you're going to see when we talk about what is going to change functionally, because we will really not do major changes functionally for travel management compared to the way the Business Suite solution has been running. Emphasizing again the point, non-disruption for our installed base customers is really of absolute importance to us here. The, let's say, FITV version that we will ship with S/4HANA 2022 is, of course, HANA only, as all S/4HANA solutions, but it's based completely on ECC 6 EHP8. So the architecture, meaning the database structures, etc., stay the same, so that the extensions that you've done, ABAPs that you've written, consuming or using these database structures will continue to run. Next slide, please. Here we go. So what is going to happen with regards to travel and expense? Three, let's say, headlines for what we are doing development-wise. So first of all, of course, we need to adapt the new S4 travel and expense version to the S/4HANA product standards, right? The technical stack of S/4HANA is quite different from the ECC stack with in many regards, and we simply have to adopt it to that. Like it's HANA only, we are adopting the GDPR framework, very similar to what Ralf has explained. What's happening in HCM, accessibility rules, UX harmonization, etc., all things that don't necessarily have to do with business functionality itself, but just, you know, so that it's consistent with all the other SAP S/4HANA solutions of the same software stack, so that we ensure that the application can be maintained with low effort in the long term. Second thing, we are going to bring new Fiori apps, which are based on the latest UX technology, which is again performance optimized with the SAP Fiori Elements framework, and we're going to see those on the next slide. And the third area, no big surprise here. Of course, there's lots of regulation in the travel and expense area, and we are especially covering with the Q4 2022 release major legal requirements for the public sector in Germany. You're seeing some examples here. Next slide, please. So these are the two new roles that we will be shipping together with their Fiori apps. So with the first role that we are focusing is the business traveler, the traveling employee, if you want. With the corresponding, you're seeing the names on the tiles here. The classic things that you want to do when you plan, execute, and then afterwards expense the travels that you've done. And the second role, again, no big surprise here, is the traveler assistant, the person helping the business traveler with certain things along these processes. Next slide, please. So for further information, we have put together some links here. We have also brought in the contact of my dear colleague FX, the product owner for travel management on premise, in case there are, let's say, deeper going questions that are not answered through our documentation. Next slide, please. That's just about the final slide that we are having. We'll also take a look at licensing or commercials, which is a little bit easier than in the HCM case. So we've got a timeline on the left-hand side. We'll take a look at what does the world look like today. Then we've got the dotted line, something new is happening, something is happening in October, and what does the world look like after October. So very briefly speaking, until today, customers can use FITV functionality under the compatibility scope rules, meaning with the usage rights expiring at the end of 2025, and technically this really being absolutely identical to what we had in ECC. And with October 2022, we are bringing not only the presented HCM functionalities, but also FITV to the so-called perpetual solution scope of SAP S/4HANA on-premise. And with regards to commercials, we have to make a distinction. One click, please. And that is the same distinction that you've also already seen on the first two slides of Ralf's commercials section. We have two commercial models through which we are taking customers to S/4HANA. One for our former ECC customers, for our installed base customers. They, in the first step, when going to S/4HANA, they keep their named users for access to the core, to S/4HANA Enterprise Management. They just have to product convert any additional licenses like cash management, EHS, etc., to their respective S4 equivalents. This is obviously something we don't do with net new customers. Net new customers immediately access the core S/4HANA Enterprise Management through the three famous use types, productivity, functional, and professional. And our installed base customers also do that once they have made a contract conversion in which they get rid of all their shelfware and their classic licenses and are then afterwards on a completely, let's say, S4 license bill of materials. So what happens to these two categories, former ECC customers, installed base customers, and net new customers? One more click, please. We are starting with our installed base customers, which I assume most of you have as a background. So the good news is there's no change, right? Because today these customers are accessing the FITV functionality through the SAP employee user. And this will continue to be the case after October. So no license change here. We'll just, quote unquote, upgrade your usage right here from limited until end of 2025 to perpetual use right. No change for installed base customers. And next click, please, for net new customers. There is a little change. So net new customers so far had to license the access to FITV through this intermediate license, which we called the travel management component, that was specifically created to just give the use rights to FITV under compact rules until the end of 2025. So really a term license. We will discontinue this license. It will no longer exist. It will no longer be available because we don't need it anymore, because we will attach the use rights to FITV to the productivity use, meaning anybody with an enterprise management use type automatically gets the right to effectively use FITV without any additional costs. So the price tag remains the same, the price tag of productivity use. And we think this is really the most elegant and, let's say, least effort solution to solve the situation. Okay, one more click, please. With that, we are at the Q&A. And again, one more click, please, Ralf. With that, let's have a look at the chat, I think.
Thank you, Michael. I love that slide with the dog upside down. I just posted the reminder into the chat that we now address the questions from the audience. So please let us know if something was unclear or if you'd like to double check on some of the content that got presented. There was one question already in the chat by Suresh about how to subscribe to our SAP community calls. And I posted a link to our event listing in our SAP community groups, where you see all events that we have, especially SAP community calls, listed in a calendar or list version, where you can also add the event to your Outlook calendar. You can set a reminder here in YouTube, and you can let us know whether you will be attending an event or whether you might be attending an event. So one question in that group event listing link that is also posted in the chat got posted. So I'll grab that question here from Surajviari. Namely, is it possible to implement travel management with MiniMaster in S4 only?
Travel management with MiniMaster in S4 only. Ralf, I'm virtually looking at you. I'm not exactly sure what kind of scenario this would be.
So you're not running HCM, but you need let's say some basic employee information, which is called the MiniMaster, to create a business partner and then run traveling expense management. And so is this how the flow is? So this basic information called MiniMaster, if this is the case, and we have dedicated 6 info types, which we call the MiniMaster, if it's limited to them, and I think that's the question, you don't need any HCM license, so no core HR. If you are doing more, then you need core HR. But if you are really using only the MiniMaster, then you are fine. So you can run travel and expense management by using this, let's call it limited employee data.
All right, thank you. I let the user know in groups that we were answering the question, whether this actually answered his question. I'm not sure if the user is also here on the YouTube live stream. And Ralf, you might want to unshare your screen so the audience can see all of us in full screen. Because otherwise it's just the person that's talking that is on screen. What I usually do when we still have time left, and where I think it is always helpful for the audience to get a little reminder of all the content that got presented, is to get a little wrap up or like a 5 key takeaways from our speakers. Because I'm sure while you're summarizing, there might be some questions in the chat that the audience is then remembering that they were interested in that topic. Whomever wants to start, Michael, Ralf, some key takeaways that you think are the most important for our community to take with them.
Yeah. So first of all, for sure, we want to encourage all our customers to move eventually to SuccessFactors as our strategic offering. But at the same time, we know that lots of customers, they need our on-premise based code line, means HCM for S/4HANA for a certain time frame to run certain scenarios, mainly in the core HR space. So therefore, we are shipping with the 22 release the H4S4 solution, which they can run till 2040. We have or using the migration tools which are available for customers to also move the HCM piece to this H4S4 solution, and for sure also not to only make the migration smooth in terms of technical point of view, but also from a license point of view, that we are harmonizing all the licensing structures across the different deployments and options so that customers can also move easily from one deployment to another in the future.
Mm-hmm. That sounds important. Before Michael is giving some key takeaways, there is 2 questions. Lila asked in the chat, if customers have implemented HR Minimaster only, will their licensing model change as well?
Nope.
Nope. All right. And then another one in our events listing in groups. If customers already working with compatibility mode, S4 with enhancement package 08 level, is it easier, like less effort, to implement the new HCM product instead of coming from a lower ERP level? Update effort like a release change?
A little yes, for sure. The main question is more if you are already on a HANA database. So if you are in the business suite, means suite on HANA, in S/4HANA for sure you are already there. So I think that's a more important step and a more time consuming and a step which is causing more effort, the database change. But I think the upgrade is not so heavily dependent on the EHP release, only if you're on a very old release and you have to do a Unicode migration, for example, so EHP 0 or something like this. That will be then additional effort to do the Unicode and so on. But if you are on 6 or 7, for example, then there's no big difference to 8.
Okay. I hope that answered your question. All right. With that, maybe handing over to Michael. Key takeaways from your side.
Sure. So the interesting thing is that the picture is pretty similar on the travel side with regards to what we are doing and why we are doing it. So Ralf has explained it a couple of times. These are just kind of intermediate solutions. They are not strategic solutions to give our installed base customers, our on-prem customers, more time. And therefore, we will also not invest too heavily into any kind of functionality there. charm of the travel and expense side is that it is functionally nowhere near as complex and as rich as HCM. So therefore, you've also seen it on the licensing side. I think we found a very elegant and very smooth way to handle that topic. With the things that we had in mind right from the start when we launched S/4HANA in 2015, being simplicity and standardization and preparing kind of for the cloud world that's coming.
Thank you. I just got the confirmation that the earlier question, the earlier answer to the question actually helped. So that's great. And in case there is questions from you all that come up after the call now, you can also, of course, always post your questions in the SAP community with tagging SAP S/4HANA, and I'll post the link to our question template for you guys, so you don't miss out. So there we go. So please let us know. Michael is always also posting a blog post about his SAP community calls. That's my second call with you, Michael, in the community. So follow his profile. It's linked to the YouTube description in SAP community, as well as Ralf's profile. So stay tuned with updates from HCM and travel and expense. With that, as we don't have more questions in the chat, and it seems like I'm checking our events listing link here again. All right, there is the longer version of the earlier short question that I read out. So it seems like that's a customer. So we have success factors implemented for all EC, full HXM suite and ECP. However, for business trip, we have a condition to check budget from finance before an employee can submit business trip. Hence, we're checking for SAP travel and expense, as Concur is not available in Saudi Arabia. But we came to know it will not be supported in the future. Hence, wanted to know if this is possible to activate and implement this business trip in SAP travel and expense.
I'm not exactly sure what is meant with not being available. So the travel and expense functionality is available in on-premise, but not in private cloud edition. I'm not sure whether that is the thing here, that the customer is on PCE. And we do not plan to make it available in private cloud edition. So there, a different solution would be required.
All right, Suraj, it seems that you're also on the call. I hope that is kind of answering your question. All right, if not, you can follow Michael and Ralf in the community and reach out to them. I'd say,
and post the question if it's still open, please, on the community page, and we will answer this.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all for joining our call. I hope that was interesting for you. Thank you, Michael and Ralf, for your time and presenting to the SAP community. I hope to have you again as speakers for one of our upcoming SAP community calls. And closing words from your side?
Thanks for your questions. Yep. Pleasure as always, and looking forward to the next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you all. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.